Action! It is the Disenfranchised Podcast, where that podcast all about those franchises of one, those films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film. I am your host, Stephen Foxworthy, and joining me, as always, it is the man about whom it is said he didn't even have a mother. Some researchers at NASA created him to be the first man to walk on the moon without a spacesuit. It's Tucker. Hey, Tucker, how we doing?
That's me. Hi, Steven. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, man. Hey, Tucker, got a question for you.
Sure.
How do you like your ribs?
Damn it. Am I supposed to
That's a line. It's a line from this movie.
Okay.
Like right before he burns the guy behind the behind the desk in Die Hard.
Look,
he's like, barbecue, huh? How do you like your ribs? And like flame throws his ass.
So, well done.
Okay.
Speaking of fire stunts, the fire stunt that starts this movie, holy shit, that is fantastic.
Dude, we're gonna get into the cold open of this movie because I have thoughts. Look, our friend Brett Wright was scheduled to be here, but he did forget that it was his girlfriend's Parcheesi night, so he is unable to attend. We do wish him a very speedy return. But Tucker, I think let's just get into this. Look, we had something different scheduled for today. We were supposed to be talking about another movie today.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Web comes out tomorrow as of the release of this episode. So we were scheduled originally to talk about Eight-Legged Freaks. But then something happened on the day that we recorded last week's episode, which is Valentine the Dark Avenger with our buddy Mike Snoonian. Last Friday, as of the date of this recording, a couple Fridays ago, as of the date of this release, one of the greats, one of the legends, Carl Weathers passed away. And we'll get into our Carl Weathers stories here momentarily. But after that recording, after we said bye to Mike, Tucker and I kind of put our heads together and said, you know what? We really should probably do something for Carl. And this movie was just kind of sitting there. I hadn't seen it before. Had you seen this movie before?
No, it's always been on my radar. Like always. But I've just never engaged with it. I've always wanted to, but it's just never seemed like I just never watched it. I have no excuse.
Yeah, no, a big same. Like it was never on my radar. Honestly, it was really never on my radar. And I find that hilarious now having seen it. I'm like, why was this never on my radar? But we decided that we needed to do one for Carl. And so, Tucker, what film are we talking about instead of Eight-Legged Freaks today?
We're talking about Action Jackson.
1988's Action Jackson, not to be confused with the 2014 Indian film of the same name. The 1988 American Action Jackson, starring Carl Weathers, the late, great Carl Weathers, along with Craig T. Nelson, Vanity,
Coach
Sharon
from
Stone.
The Last Dragon. And fucking Sharon Stone, yeah. She is Sharon Stone.
She is Sharon Stone from all that shit Sharon Stone was in.
Yeah.
The great Bill Duke, Robert Davi, Jack
His eyes
Tebow.
look a lot better in this movie too. So
he's younger. Yeah, he's younger, and it shows. Jack Tebow, Armelia McQueen, Roger Aaron Brown, Thomas F. Wilson, Edgar Small, Chino Fats Williams, Prince A. Hughes, Devereaux White, Dennis Hayden, Bob Miner, Nicholas Worth, Ed O. Ross, Mary Ellen Trainor, Sonny Landham, Al Lung, and so many others. Tucker, dare I say it, what a cast. What a picture.
You forgot Argyle from Die Hard.
I said Devereaux White.
Oh, I don't know his name. I just know he's Argyle from Die Hard.
Yeah, I get a text from you this morning saying Argyle's in this movie. Not that shitty spy movie that just came out, but the guy from Die Hard, the limo driver from Die Hard.
if you remember correctly, in maybe the last episode or whenever we were talking about Argyle, I was like, "Oh, you talking
Mm-hmm.
about Homeboy from Die Hard?"
Yeah. But
So
here's
yeah,
the thing.
whatever that movie is, I don't know.
This movie shares a lot of cast with Die Hard because you also got Al Lung
Mm-hmm.
and Dennis Hayden, both of whom are henchmen of the Rickman in that movie. Robert Davi, who plays one of the cops in that movie, and Mary Ellen Trainor is one of the is like the news anchor in that movie. So like you've
Who's the
got
guy? Who's the henchman guy? The Asian guy with the mustache that's in
Al
everything.
Lung, Al
Okay,
Lung.
so when I saw him, I was like, "All
Mm-hmm.
right, yep, okay, I know what's up. Let's
Yeah.
go."
Al, and he gets one great scene, and he's up against whoa, I just forgot the dude's name. Like literally just forgot the dude's name. I'm gonna have to look. Chino Fats Williams playing
Okay.
Kid Sable. Um, and he's just got one, he has such a distinct voice. Like he sounds like he's just gargled hot asphalt. It's really
Yeah.
kind of what he sounds
Yes.
like in this movie. But like he is, and there's like Ao Lung is just one of those everymen. He's been Big Trouble in Little China. See our episode on that. But like I know he's a favorite of our friend Hope Lickner. He's also like Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, as we mentioned.
He's
They
basically
Live.
the that guy actor of Henchman.
Yeah, he's in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He plays
Yes, he
Genghis
is. He's
Khan.
Genghis Khan,
Yep.
who enjoys Twinkies because of their excellent sugar rush.
Mm-hmm. Correct. He's in Twilight Zone the movie.
Yes, he is.
Like he's just a Lethal Weapon, Running Scared. I'm just looking at his IMDb or his filmography, and it's kind of insane. Last Action Hero.
Dense
See our
as
previous
fuck.
episode on
Yeah.
Last Action Hero. Hot Shots Part 2, Beverly Hills Cop Part 3, the future episode The Shadow, future episode Double Dragon. He's in Escape
Speaking
from
of,
LA. He's
we're
in
gonna be. This is
Godzilla. See
not.
our episode on Godzilla.
This is not the last time that we will be bringing up Beverly Hills Cop in this episode. That's for sure.
No, absolutely
That
no.
is
I
for
I
sure.
had this. I had the same fucking thought, bro.
Because that's the crossover I want. Give me
Mm-hmm.
Axel Foley and Action Jackson.
Well, you can't now.
I
But
know,
like,
but
if
ooh,
someone had had the foresight to make that happen like 10 years ago,
yes.
I would have been on fucking board for that. First of all,
Girl, me
the
too.
fact that this movie does not have at least 2 sequels, let alone 5, is absurd to me.
It's a crime.
I think I know why, and we'll get into it. We will get into this movie.
Word.
I have so much to talk about. Spoiler alert, I had a ton of fun with this movie.
Me too.
This movie is cuckoo banana pants, a fucking blast. And when it started, I was like, holy shit, is this a perfect movie? Because let me tell you, Tucker, the cold open to this movie might be one of the best cold opens of any movie I have ever fucking seen in
Probably.
my life.
Probably.
It is absolutely like there were moments in this movie where, and I'm watching it on my laptop while my partner is sitting right next to me working. She's working her day job, and I'm sitting here watching this movie, and I'm like pumping my fist in the air and like dancing to the Pointer Sisters and just having a fucking blast with this movie. And she's
Speaking
like,
of
I can tell you're having fun.
Speaking of Beverly Hills Cop, also Pointer Sisters. Like there's
Yes.
another, kind of
Yep.
Detroit. Of course, there's the Detroit of it
I was
all.
gonna say Detroit. It's
Yeah.
the Motown of it all. Yeah. That's 100%. That's what it is. And the Pointer Sisters fucking wrote a song for this movie. This movie's soundtrack was like a thing, and this movie has such a good soundtrack. Oh my
It really
god, the
does.
music in this movie is unbelievable. First of all, this movie's not streaming anywhere. Go rent Action Jackson. Just
Do
from
it.
me and Tucker, go fucking rent this beast because it is worth your time. It is worth your time to check this out.
You're gonna have
You
fun.
will absolutely have a blast. It's fun on a bun, man. It is just such a blast. From start to finish, it is goofy, silly. It
Dude, the
is the perfect blend of a late 80s action movie and a late 70s blaxploitation movie. It is all of those elements kind of merged into one thing, and it fucking works.
directed by a stunt man, so like the stunts are gonna be
Mm-hmm.
off the chain. And speaking
All
of
the
that fire stunt at the beginning,
yes.
that
Let's fucking get into
look,
that.
that whole time, like the guy blows up, right, and he goes out the window, and like the whole
Mm-hmm.
time he's falling, my face is just
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
The action set pieces in this movie are some of the best 80s action set pieces I have ever seen.
They
And
look great. They're so well shot.
this guy is the stunt coordinator of like Predator. And like
Mm-hmm.
some of this, the director, I did not say the name of the director up top. I probably should have. Craig R. Baxley is the director. This is his debut. He's the stunt coordinator on movies like Predator, Warren Beatty's Reds, The Warriors, the Walter Hill film The Warriors,
Mm-hmm.
and he also worked on The A-Team. Like he was a consistent stunt coordinator and director on The A-Team. Like his first directing gig, the one gig he had before this was an episode of The A-Team. Like he did stunts on fucking like Logan's Run and the SWAT TV show and Barnaby Jones, which we mentioned on our What Are We Watching
Look,
from last week.
if you can make Craig T. Nelson look like he's got some moves, you're doing
Mm-hmm.
something right. You're doing something
100%.
right.
Yeah. And I mean, look, this guy, this is like, because I was reminded, like, the modern analog of this is like a Chad Stahelski, or a David Leitch, like the guys who did the
Okay,
stunts on The
yeah.
Matrix, who then went on to direct like Deadpool and Zombieland and that and those movies. Like those guys were stunt coordinators that just went on to direct their own stuff. And that's kind of, and the people who watch those movies talk about how great, or fucking John Wick. Like the people that watch those movies are like, the action is absolutely incredible. That's what Action Jackson is. But for like the late 80s ripped, muscle bound action hero, like the Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Lundgren era of 80s action hero, which kind of ends in 88 when this movie comes out. We'll get into that as well. Like, and Carl Weathers is kind of the lone black 80s action hero. Really?
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of in a, because all those other guys are very, very white.
Yeah.
Like Snipes doesn't come along until the 90s. Like Snipes becomes that guy, but Snipes really doesn't show up until like 90, 92.
Yeah.
Like I think White Men Can't Jump is 90 or 91.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even him doing action. He didn't do action until a couple of years later. So like Carl Weathers is kind of it.
And speaking of all those
this movie should have gotten sequels.
Speaking of all those white dudes, like, you know, I love Sylvester Stallone. Like Sylvester Stallone is kind of, it's one of those, he's an actor that I'm invested in. Like I don't always like the movies he's in, but
there's a straight up coming up in a few months that will have Sly in it, and we will talk all about your love of Sly at that point.
I do. I love him so much.
You do.
But this is the movie that I wanted Cobra to be. This is what Cobra should have been, and Cobra had the potential to do it, but it just wasn't as well made as this. It just was not as well made as this Cobra movie.
Right.
Which I think, Steven, you enjoyed it a little more than I did.
I did, but I enjoyed this one even more than I enjoyed Cobra.
Yeah, this is. I don't know if there's such a thing as, it's kind of like in the Weird Al movie where he's like the most popular in a very specific genre, you know. That's this. Like this might be the perfect 100%. Movie of a very specific genre.
Okay, so I had no context for this movie, but when I saw it, I figured it was something more akin to like a Leonard Part 6, which is to say a parody of late 80s action.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't get that vibe at all.
Well, but again, that was my perception.
Yeah.
having not seen any of it, knowing nothing about it, seeing only the poster and knowing the title. Like that was my assumption of what this movie was. And I have never been happier to be proven incorrect about something in my life, because I think in a lot of ways this movie is, I don't want to say it's lampooning the tropes of 80s action because it's really perpetuating them in a very interesting way, in a way that like another movie we're going to talk about a lot in this episode, I have a feeling that Die Hard isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like Action Jackson is really kind of propelling those tropes in a way that Die Hard really isn't. And I think Die Hard becomes the future and Action Jackson
Die
becomes
Hard is
kind of
the
a,
next step, and
right.
Action
Action Jackson kind of
Jackson
becomes a
is
relic of the past. Yeah.
the big climax of that genre
Yeah,
before it
absolutely.
evolves into what Die Hard turns it into.
Right. And I mean, this movie comes out a few months before Die Hard. This movie is, spoilers, a box office success story.
Fucking A.
And I think there were some issues with the rights. Like the rights kind of got tangled along the way, which is why we don't get a sequel to Action Jackson. But this movie, this feels like a movie that should have gotten, again, at least 2 sequels, if not more. Like this feels like a franchise that could have done for Carl Weathers what Die Hard did for Bruce Willis.
Agreed.
Had Die Hard not come along the same year. I mean, I think to go back to our discussion of like black action heroes, I think you get Lethal Weapon the previous year, and Danny Glover is kind of in that spot, but he starts off being too old for this shit.
Well, yeah, and I feel like it's a really great joke in Undercover Brother about that, because in the Brotherhood spy like main office, there's just a big picture of Danny Glover.
Love it.
Because why wouldn't you? If you're like part of that, you'd have to see the movie anyway. Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, he did action stuff in Lethal Weapon, but he was kind of like in a comedy where you have like the goofy guy and the straight man. With Lethal Weapon, you had Mel Gibson, who was kind of the action guy, and Danny Glover, who was kind of the straight man, sort of in that context.
Right. He's the normal cop, whereas Mel Gibson is the crazy action hero cop. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And speaking to, you were saying that you thought that it was like a comedy before you saw it.
Right.
Tom Wilson wasted in this movie.
Oh, so wasted in this movie. I mean, here's the thing. There are so many of these guys who show up for like a few scenes that I'm just like, I want, because they go on to be either so much bigger or they started so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tom Wilson gets his big break like 3 years before in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Like, and I think this is either the same year. Is this the same year as Back to the Future Part 2?
Part 2 was 89, I believe, and Part 2 was 90, or it's 90 and 91, one of the two.
No, you're right. Back to the Future is Part 2 is 89, Part 3 is 90. You're right.
Yes. Okay.
So the second Back to the Future movie is a year after this movie comes out. He's still kind of doing those smaller roles. Like he's still kind of, I think, looking for his next thing, but like he's such an incredible performer and so very, very funny in so many things. And he has opportunities to be funny in this, but they are minor at best, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think that like those two cops, him and that other cop, were kind of originally meant to be kind of comedic relief. Mm-hmm. But like, as much as I think Tom Wilson was wasted in this, I think that if they were like funny or silly, it kind of would have killed the tone of the movie. Because in the ways that this movie is funny, it's not in that kind of way. It's not in a goofy, silly kind of way. It's like kind of a wink, see what we did there kind of way.
And there's a part of me that wonders if they're not supposed to be like the Judge Reinhold, John Ashton analogs from Beverly Hills Cop.
I wish, but they're like in it 3 or 4 times, maybe like a total of like 10 minutes. These guys are on screen.
And I think that's one of the weaknesses of this movie insofar as this movie has weaknesses, and it's not a perfect movie, but the plot is so complicated that like there are so many characters with so little to do that it's bursting out of its 95-minute runtime.
I agree.
And like it almost feels like 95 minutes is too short for what, like I need another at least 10 minutes of exposition to kind of tie this movie together.
This is the kind of movie
something
that you watch it and you're like, holy fuck, that was great. What happened?
Yep.
Like
according to
What?
the
Hold
IMDb
on.
trivia, and so take this with a grain of salt because
Yeah.
IMDb trivia, but according to the IMDb trivia, this movie went 3 months over schedule because no one in the cast could understand the plot.
Oh, really?
3 months over schedule because of the plot.
In a movie like this, does the cast need to understand the plot?
That's kind of my question. Like, why do we need to delay filming for 3 months to explain the plot to the cast?
They obviously know what kind of movie they're in. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not.
I mean, I would hope so. But then again, like this movie is unnecessarily complicated in a way that is, I don't know. And again, it is, I think, the biggest flaw of this movie is just how complicated this thing gets. And I guess we'll get into it when we get into the plot, because there's just so much going on in this thing that I don't know. It doesn't need to be there. Like I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, Tucker. I just felt like it was unnecessarily complicated.
5 minutes later.
Right. So yeah, unnecessarily complicated. We had some technical issues. We're back though. We're back. We're good.
An entire beer, Steven. An entire beer.
And what happened to that entire beer, Tucker?
Look, so like I have my desk is 2 tiers. Like there's the main desk, and then there's like maybe a 6-inch wide sort of second level of my desk. And that's where my additional monitor sits. But my actual computer, my MacBook here, it sits just right here on the desk, right next to my coaster, which is real. It's a real wooden branch.
Just a slice of a tree. Yeah.
Yep. And my beer sits on that. And I don't know how, but I was taking a shot while you were talking, and my beer just leapt from the coaster. Unmolested, leapt from the coaster onto my computer, and there was so much beer on my MacBook. I don't know how it still works.
Look,
because that was a lot of beer.
This is a gift. This is a gift. We're not going to question it.
No,
it's a gift.
No. The podcast gods have smiled upon us today.
Most days they don't, but today was a good day.
That charging cable is still not happy, so yeah. I think I got some beer in the charging cable. Outside of that, though, it's strange because everything else, there are 4 USB-C ports on this computer, and that's it. So I have 2 hubs connected on one, and then I have my power and my monitor on the other. And none of the other ones got anything in them, but my charging cable is being a little wonky.
So yeah, you might have to dunk the whole laptop in a bag of rice when we're done.
No, I feel like it's either just the port. Like this happens to my phone all the time too. Like my phone is waterproof, but there's also a USB-C port on it. So if there gets moisture gets in there or something, it lets me know. And it's like, hey, don't try to charge this with this port because there's water in it. And I feel like that's what's happening right now. But I have more than enough battery to continue what we're doing. And what we are doing is talking about Action Jackson. And Steven, you were saying that the plot is there's a lot. There's just a lot.
And it's too much, I would say. Like, it's more plot than this movie needs. quite frankly.
Agreed.
Which is, again, not to say that I wasn't having a good time, but there are moments where I was just like, wait, what's happening? What's going
If
on? Like
if
it.
this film weren't as well done as it is in
Mhm,
every other aspect,
right.
it would not be as good
I
because
agree.
there's just way too much going on. And like
Correct.
I hate that you start out with Sharon Stone
Mhm.
and you're like, "Oh, she's great and I love like the chemistry they have and like what's going on and like it's really interesting." And then she dies.
Yeah, so like I'm gonna let's talk Sharon Stone a little bit, kind of where she is in '88, because she is not ascended to the Sharon Stone status that we know her at this point. Like in
Yeah, she's not a
'88,
huge deal.
no, she's actually a relatively minor deal in the '80s. Like she does the King Solomon's Mines, which I think is a canon film with
Good
Richard
old canon.
Chamberlain in '85, based on the H. Rider Haggard books. Back when Indiana Jones was popular, so they tried to remake the Rider Haggard films or novels.
Well,
She
those
does
and like
both.
Alan Quartermain and like anybody else that's like even remotely Indiana Jones adjacent.
Well, yeah, that's King Solomon's Mines. That is Alan Quartermain.
Oh,
Um,
word?
yeah. So she does
Wow.
King Solomon's Mines and the sequel, Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold. She does both of those. She does Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol in '87. Also
I've
in
heard that's the best
'87
police academy.
is, I have no
Or
idea.
is it the one where they go to Russia? I don't know.
It's definitely not Mission to Moscow. That's
Look, if the
the
Goot's
worst
in it,
one.
I'm there.
I think he does
I
most of
show up
those.
I show up when the Goot shows up. That's just how I
Um,
am that's who I am as a person.
I will tell you the Goot is definitely in 4. So I
Fucking
don't
A.
know if the Goot is in 8 though. I think he might have tapped out by 8. Could be wrong. I can check it if you want.
No, it's not worth it. I just think Steve Gutenberg is an American treasure, no big deal.
It looks like 4 is his last appearance in in a Police Academy film. So there you go.
Word. Well,
Cold
the
Steel,
swan
also
song,
in
if you will.
'87, and then
Word.
Action Jackson the next year, along with Above the Law. And then she doesn't like her first movie, like that she kind of gets noticed in, is Total Recall, which doesn't happen until '90, and
I always
that's
forget she's in that.
I mean, maybe like more attractive than anyone has ever looked at a movie before, maybe. Um,
Agreed, but
but like her big break isn't until '92 with Basic Instinct. That's
that's
like
what
her.
that Basic Instinct.
And then after that, she's got Sliver. She's in Last Action Hero, playing her character from Basic Instinct. But after that, like after Basic Instinct, she is Sharon Stone. She's fully ascended. Does one of the greatest westerns of all time, The Quick and the Dead, Martin
Fuck
Scorsese's
yes.
Casino. Like she has
Yes,
fully
dude.
arrived at that point. Like,
She's
but
referenced in Scream. That's like you don't just get referenced in Scream.
right, Wes
You
Craven's not even
basically
gonna
have to
reference
be
somebody,
Sharon Stone.
right? Or John Carpenter. Like,
Exactly.
but like no, I mean she kind of ascends in the early '90s, so this is well before she's at that
Well,
moment, and so like this is just kind of an early role for her. But yeah, you kind of think she's gonna be the girl, and then she's kind of a weird sacrificial lamb in this movie.
yeah, and it sucks because she's kind of fantastic in it, and I really
Hmm.
dig the chemistry she has not only with Carl Weathers, but even the stuff she's in with Craig T. Nelson. Like
Hmm.
it's all fantastic, and then
Yeah,
she just straight up dies. That's
as
not to say that like the rest of the movie isn't full of fantastic performances, but like it's a
correct.
shame to see that one get snuffed so early.
Right. I mean, she's dead within the first half. Like so much happens in this movie so quickly. Like I first paused the movie at 10 minutes in, like right after we meet Action Jackson, and I was like, holy shit, we're just now meeting the title character 10 minutes into the movie. And then I paused it another 10 minutes, and I feel like the plot is half evolved at that point. Like it a lot happens very quickly in this movie. Like it starts out at like a good pace, but then once it gets going, it's a fucking freight train, this movie.
Yeah.
Like, because it's got 95 minutes to fill and like no time to stop. Kind of like the movie, what I thought of last week's movie, Valentine. Like it's got so much to do and it just books it to the end. Like, it's like, well, no time for development, no time for any of this, superfluous shit. We're just booking it to the end. I feel like this movie does it better than Valentine, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But like, I
Yeah.
feel like
It's the
that's
kind of
something
film
both
that's
these movies have in
made for
common.
that sort of storytelling.
For sure.
Because you're
100%.
basically sandwiching exposition in between huge action pieces. And in this movie, it doesn't, unlike Valentine, or even like, I was mentioning a couple weeks ago, that new Mission Impossible movie, where it's
Mhm.
like action set piece, and then they explain the plot a bit. Action set piece, explain the plot a bit. This one, like, it felt very natural, even though the plot was overcomplicated. It wasn't like
Right.
people just sitting there talking about the plot, like the most recent Mission Impossible. Like,
Right.
things were moving forward. You were going from location to location, from person to person. Like, it flowed. It had a rhythm to it.
Yep.
So, I mean, even like I say, even though it's overcomplicated, it works. It works.
Yeah, I agree. Like, this, for the flaws in the plotting of this movie, the pacing is incredible. Like, the plotting is atrocious, but the pacing is really well done. Like, it goes at a clip and it doesn't stop. Like, you're introduced to like main characters late in the movie. Like Kid Sable, you meet him, I feel like, in the back half of the second third of this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
And
at the beginning of the third act, almost.
yeah, pretty much. And he's a huge character, and that's why I'm bummed this movie never had sequels, is because every minor character in this movie is like a main character in another film. Like
Yep.
D, the hairdresser that he goes to for information after he tries to meet Papa Doc, and of course finds out that Papa Doc is dead and his testicles are in a jar. Like she is a lead character in another movie, or like a main character in another movie. Like Kid
You could have had a
Sable,
whole cinematic universe. Action Jackson CU.
you absolutely could have.
AJCU is what it would be
AJCU.
called.
Like, you absolutely could have had like spin-offs, or like maybe she becomes a major character in the second film. Like, because I mean, she's a one scene character, but she is so over the top and so memorable and so fun and funny that you're like, I want more of her. And I feel the same way about Kid Sable. I feel the same way about Bill Duke. I feel the same way about the two beat cops played by Tom Wilson and Roger Aaron Brown. Like, I feel the same way about so many characters in this movie. Like, I want more of them than this movie is willing to give me. Like, you could do a whole prequel spin-off just on the Invisible Army characters, like the henchmen, that Craig T. Nelson's henchmen. Like,
in modern terms, what this would work great as, if it were made today, would be something like a Black Mirror. Well, not so much a Black Mirror, but more like a Sherlock, where like you have seasons of like 3 or 4 episodes, but each episode is feature length. So you get to explore that world a little bit through while still following that main character of Carl Weathers and Action Jackson.
Absolutely.
That would be ideal.
It would be so ideal. It would be so good.
It would cost a lot of money.
It would. I mean,
especially
look,
to do practically.
I was gonna say, action set pieces like this do not come cheap. Like the chase scene with Bob Miner as Gamble, Mr. Gamble, like when he ramps that car up over and into the building, I was just fucking pumping my fist in the air and just
I was just like mouth agape. It's like, I cannot believe how insane this is. This is fantastic.
Right. Like, I feel like every action set piece, I was just like in awe of what was being accomplished. Like, I have long said that Die Hard is a perfect action movie, and I still believe that is true. But scene for scene, I would put any action scene in this movie up against any action scene in Die Hard, and I feel like these would come out on top.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely, and I think it's because this film is a little more. It's a little more out there. It's a little more over the top. The Die Hard stuff is a little more grounded.
Yeah.
So, and that's what keeps that a perfect movie, even though the action scenes are better in this one.
Right.
I think
Well,
it's
and I
because the
mean,
tones are different for sure.
and this film, I think, is doing a really good job of measuring tones between, and I said this earlier, between like those late era 80s action films with Schwarzenegger and Stallone just as ripped as any two human beings have ever looked in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
and those 70s blaxploitation movies like Shaft or Superfly, or I mean, even on to a lesser degree, something like a Foxy Brown. Like it's kind
Now you're
of
speaking my language.
it's in that zone, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
and this whole movie is born out of Carl Weathers and Joel Silver's shared love of blaxploitation films.
Yeah,
And
just
on
hanging
this
out talking about it on the set of Predator. No
on the
big
set of
deal.
Predator, right? They're
Yeah,
just sitting there chatting about it,
hanging
and
out.
Carl Weathers basically pitches the idea of, well, why don't we do something like that with me? I don't know, call it Action Jackson. And like Craig Baxley is there doing the stunts, and he's like, well, I could work on that. And Joel Silver's probably like, well, why don't you direct it? And like that's where the whole thing is born. And you got two Predator actors. You got the immortal Bill Duke.
Yeah, Bill Duke. Yep,
I cannot say enough good about Bill Duke. I
he's
fucking
fantastic in everything I've seen him
love
in.
that man. He's also an amazing director.
What has he directed?
He
Tell me more. I didn't know about this. What the
you
fuck?
didn't know Bill Duke
Holler
was a
at your boy.
director? Dude.
I did not know.
First
I'm
of all,
looking right now.
I know for a fact you have absolutely seen one of the movies he has directed, because he directed one of the Sister Acts. I think it is Sister Act 2.
What? With Lauryn Hill? What?
Yes. I am 95% sure that Bill Duke directed Sister Act 2, Back in the
You're
Habit.
killing me. I love it, and you're killing me.
He is
Director. I don't know. This is familiar. Oh, these are TV shows. That's why.
Yes, he did direct Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit. He also directed future episode of this podcast, A Rage in Harlem, and a movie,
what?
A Rage in Harlem.
Oh, okay.
Future episode of this podcast.
Okay.
And he also directed a really fucking great Lawrence Fishburne. It's Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum movie called Deep Cover that is so fucking incredible. Now, in later years, he's kind of gone on to do some like his early years are very like intense, like some of the stuff he's directing. And I think later in his career,
an episode of Matlock.
Yeah, man.
Sorry,
later in
ahead.
his career, he's doing like religious films, like Not Easily Broken.
You know, you get to the end of your life, you get a little spiritual, I'm sure.
Sure.
He's still alive though, right?
Yeah, man. He's still around. He's still kicking.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like when he does pass,
like,
I feel like when he does pass, we're gonna have to do Rage in Harlem or something on main feed, because
absolutely, fucking A, I'm waiting.
Like
for that.
He is probably the best part of the worst X-Men movie, or I guess second worst X-Men movie. But yeah, like the best part of that movie. Like whenever Bill Duke shows up, it's the Alfred Molina thing. I feel like I can rest easy because I'm in good hands with Bill Duke. Like that man can do no wrong in my mind. He is so fucking good. And he's got just one of the great faces, one of the great voices. He's got these like deep sunken eyes. He's got this voice that is
instantly recognizable
and instant gravitas as well. Like, and there are a handful of actors that exist in that zone. Your boy who passed away last year, Lance Reddick, I think existed in that zone as well.
Yeah.
Like he just shows up and you know exactly who this guy is. And I think Bill Duke does that so well. And he is so fucking good in Predator. Like I told you earlier when I was watching this movie, I just kind of wanted to watch Predator, right? Like I had shit to do, so I couldn't, but I was like, I kind of want to just put on Predator right after this and just watch Predator.
Double feature. Yeah.
because
That
you've
sounds
got, and then there's the scene where you have Carl Weathers fighting Sonny Landham, who is Billy in Predator. Like,
all
I
we're missing is a Shane Black cameo. That's
really, or a Shane Black script. Here's the thing: I think Shane Black could have done a polish on this script, and it
okay.
probably would have elevated this movie to like a 5-star movie.
I like that idea. I'm way into that. Shane Black, I don't want to say let's do a remake, but like let's invent a time machine.
Honestly, though, the only thing that bums me out about an Action Jackson remake is that Carl Weathers isn't around to do it.
And even if it is like a remake and it's a different actor in the main role, like Beverly Hillbillies, you would want Carl Weathers, like Get Carter, you would want Michael Caine, like you want these people to show up just
Here's
to
the
like
thing:
in solidarity,
you can
that
get
goes
Bill
a
Duke to
long
show
way with
back
the
up.
remake. It goes a long way in a remake. Like if as bad as each subsequent watch of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake gets for me, if Robert Englund showed up just like in the background somewhere, that's an extra star.
Hell
For
yeah.
sure. That's solidarity right there. That's like,
Absolutely.
where's Peter Weller? I love you, but could you please have just like showed up for a minute in the RoboCop remake? Because outside of that, perfect remake. Just saying.
I mean, you kind of want the hat tip.
Yeah.
You want the hat. Oh, I didn't know Bill Duke was in High Flying Bird. Now I want to see High Flying Bird. I was kind of like,
I don't even know what the fuck that is.
That's the Soderbergh movie that he made like right before the pandemic.
Oh shit.
He made it on his fucking phone.
Nice.
And it's got Andre Holland in it.
Oh, word.
And apparently it's got Bill Duke in it too. And I fucking love Bill Duke. So I kind of want to watch that now.
Now you kind of have to see it. I look forward to it showing up on a What Are We Watching?
No, I do. I love Bill Duke. And I think 88 kind of spells the end of like any attempt at like a rejuvenation of the blaxploitation thing, because you've got, I think the year before, you've got Hollywood Shuffle comes out in 87, and that's a Robert Townsend movie. And then also in 88,
you, sucker, though?
you also have, but here's the thing: in most cases, when the parody hits, the genre is dead. And I say in most cases because
you can't kill blaxploitation though. Like
I say in most cases, but here's the thing: how many blaxploitation movies are made in the 90s? None. And the ones that come in later are kind of like doing parody or homage to the blaxploitation thing.
Not necessarily, yeah.
I mean,
you got stuff like Jackie Brown.
Right.
You got stuff like Booty Tang. You got stuff like Undercover Brother, like we talked about. What are we watching?
But again, those are more in the parody homage territory.
And that's in the 2000s too. That's not in the 90s. I mean, even you get stuff like Black Dynamite is like late 2000s.
But then you get like, I mean, John Singleton Shaft is 2000 on the Nugget, and that is absolutely a blaxploitation homage. But again, in the 90s, you don't have it. So like you get this decade of a fallow period essentially in the 90s where there is not, with the exception of Tarantino doing Jackie Brown, really no one else is right, and no one else is really touching the genre at all. And like Jackie Brown comes along and people are like, we could do this again,
I guess.
And I mean, but you look at some of the Black stories that are being told, and I think it starts with Do the Right Thing in 1989, Spike Lee. And like Spike, that's his third film, I think. Like, so he's doing stuff in the 80s, like leading up to that. But like that movie is such a seismic turning point. And then you get like Boys in the Hood,
Society,
Menace to Society, exactly.
Yes.
Juice.
Okay, so and that's the thing.
Like that becomes the 90s era of Black filmmaking.
Yes. But I think at a certain point you get this new thing, and you get a lot of this new thing, and it's amazing. But then at a certain point you're like, yes, but this is also valid. So maybe we should bring a little bit of this back. And that's what I mean about like
Singleton Shaft is. That's what Singleton Shaft is. It's because you get the guy who made Boys in the Hood doing a blaxploitation
doing
movie,
blaxploitation.
and you
Yeah.
bring those two things together, and it becomes this kind of second wave blaxploitation that I guess technically you could say Tarantino probably kickstarted, but I would say Singleton maybe perfected. We're going to talk
Yeah.
about the 2000 Shaft one day, so I don't want to say too much about it
I can't
now.
wait because I want to see that new one too. I
We're
just want
going
to
to do
watch all of
both.
them all at once in one
Really,
day.
yes.
Every
I
single
absolutely,
Shaft movie.
I own Shaft on the Criterion 4K,
And that
and it
comes with one of the
Shaft
sequels,
it
doesn't
comes
it?
with Shaft Goes to Africa, I think. Or
Okay.
no, Shaft's Big Score, the second one. Shaft's
Okay.
Big Score. Shaft in Africa, I don't have. I would have to find that one. But then
It's canon. I'm
it
just
is.
saying.
It
It's
is.
canon.
It is.
Every movie in the Shaft franchise is canon.
It is. But I would call both of the most recent ones spin-offs rather than sequels. They're not direct sequels. They're both spin-offs in their own right.
No, yeah, it's like it's the same kind of deal, but since the
Mhm.
character is, that's kind of passing the torch
It
sort of
is.
thing.
Well, except Samuel L. Jackson is still the biggest star in the most recent Shaft movie.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Because
But
as
what I
great as
mean,
Jesse T. Usher is, he's not Samuel L.
he's no
Jackson.
Sam
So
Jackson. What I mean by like blaxploitations and you can't kill it is that yeah, it may have been in its heyday in the 60s and the 70s, but it's never really going to die. It's going to keep getting resurrected. I think it's something that's so ingrained in film history that you can't help but acknowledge it. I mean, it's never going to fade from the consciousness, I don't think.
sure,
Is what I was saying.
I certainly agree with that. But like, the proof is in the pudding. Like, if it's not getting made, like there are people that are always going to remember it. Like I think of westerns are probably like a really good analog for what I'm thinking about, because you don't really get westerns anymore, but there was a time when they were like every other movie that was being made
It
was a
was
western.
the most popular genre, yeah.
Absolutely. But like these days when a western comes along, it's a novelty at best.
Hmm.
Like I'm trying to think of the last western that kind of got any kind of mainstream attention. Like
Honestly,
I'm
mainstream
thinking,
attention, I don't know, but History of Violence and Bone Tomahawk were both fucking
you mean In the
fantastic.
Valley of Violence?
Yeah, sorry, I said Cronenberg's History of Violence,
Yeah, which
not
is a
Viggo
perfect
Mortensen. No,
movie.
Ethan
Yeah,
Hawke and John
John
Travolta in A
Travolta.
Valley of Motherfucking Violence
I was
by
gonna say,
your boy Ty West.
yeah, I was gonna say that is my favorite Ty West movie, which feels like a really hot take, but God, I love that so much.
No, it's not my favorite, but I get it. It is a fantastic movie, and it's so off-brand, but also on-brand for Ty West. Like,
Hmm.
it's a really weird movie, and I love it.
But I feel like after Unforgiven, which is kind of Clint Eastwood's final western and kind of his final statement on the genre,
That's the final word on the genre.
that's
Exactly.
that's and that's 92. But after that you still get like Sam Raimi's Quick and the Dead. A couple years before Unforgiven, you get Robert Zemeckis' western Back to the Future Part 3. You then after that you get
Which works way better than it ever had any right to as a Western.
exactly, but like so you get these westerns, but they're sporadic at
Mhm.
best. But because there comes a point when these things hit critical mass, and I feel like blaxploitation movies were fizzling out by the late 80s, and so 88 you kind of get these final
Well, I
statements
mean,
on blaxploitation in 87 and 88 between
I'd
this
say
Hollywood Shuffle and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker.
I'd say that blaxploitation hit its peak in the mid 70s, and by the
Sure.
late 70s it was dying down.
Right.
That's why when Carl Weathers was doing Predator, that's why I'm sure he was like, "Hey, we should do something that's like that because like nobody's doing that. I think we could, it's all speculation. I wasn't there."
Right.
But I'm just saying, with the way this movie is and the way like the popularity of blaxploitation was,
Mm-hmm. I
I feel like
mean,
that kind of was probably
and I mean, you have stuff like this and The Last Dragon, which are kind of these 80s riffs on blaxploitation, Hollywood Shuffle, Action Jackson. Like you get these kind of like things that are kind of riffing on these ideas. And then you get some other ones in like few and far between through the 90s, but then the 2000s it starts to pick up a little bit with stuff like Shaft and Pootie Tang and Undercover Brother and Black Dynamite. Like, and all this shit comes in waves, like, but there's not, it's most consistent through the 70s, and then it kind of peters out, but it feels like it almost straight up, once we get that parody, I'm gonna get you, suck it feels like that's kind of an end point. It feels like that's kind of like a, okay, like this is a quote unquote dead genre, and now any explorations are going to be in the homage parody area.
And if you wanna like see in real time the fluctuation of the popularity of blaxploitation, just look up Pam Grier's IMDb page.
Yes.
And you'll have a real good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fantastic actress, love her. But like when blaxploitation died, until like Jackie Brown,
Yeah.
we're like, where has Pam Grier been?
Yeah.
Is she okay? Like,
right.
And apparently she is. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean that's kind of, but again, blaxploitation is this kind of thing that very much comes out of the 70s. You get these great auteurs like Melvin Van Peebles and Gordon Parks that are like going out and doing this great shit, and then like it starts to become folded into the mainstream, and those guys start to get bigger platforms, and so their movies start to do different things, and like people that are inspired by those movies start to get bigger platforms, start to fold those elements into bigger movies, and so now you've got people with bigger budgets doing those things better, and those movies kind of fall back. I mean, kung fu, that was another genre that was insanely popular through the 70s. And a same thing happens with it going forward. Like those movies start to take a back seat, and then we get more like Asian filmmakers actually starting to make those films. Like Jackie Chan like starts directing his own films, like and so that becomes again, and I'm kind of getting off the point here, but like it's imperative that we allow people to tell their own stories. Craig Baxley, by the way, white dude. I just want to throw that out there. But I would say the auteur of this film is not Craig Baxley, it's Carl Weathers. Like this is kind of his baby.
Craig's
his
invited to the
brainchild.
barbecue. It's all right. Like
sure. But like this I don't think you get to invite people to the barbecue, Tucker.
Hey man, I'm invited to the barbecue. I feel like I could have a +1.
You're gonna make Craig your +1. All right, dude. That's your choice.
Maybe, I don't know.
But like I feel like this is Carl's, and I think that's why this is kind of the perfect movie to talk about, to remember and memorialize Carl, is because this is his brainchild. This is his baby, and this movie comes out of his passion for this genre and this type of storytelling and this type of filmmaking. And it does feel like a perfect union between what was popular when he was getting into film and what is popular in the modern 80s context.
And he's mostly remembered as a co-lead, like never the leading man, but this is his lead role.
Exactly. Well, he's got a couple others, but this is the big one. Like he's got, I think Hurricane Smith it's an Australian, I think that one's an Ozploitation film, kind of borrowing elements from Ozploitation and blaxploitation. And then there was
on the list. I want to see that.
I mean, I guess we can.
The
there's another movie that he made with Billy D. Williams.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Sometimes in some countries it's Action Jackson 2.
Yeah, in Germany, I believe. I think it's called Desperate Passions. Dangerous Passion. Sorry.
There you go.
Dangerous Passion. One of I was close.
Something.
But like, yeah. And then I think the last word on like, but again, this is kind of the end, not only of blaxploitation though, but of this particular kind of 80s action movie, because Die Hard.
Yeah.
And Die Hard changes the script so that our leading men are not these huge, ripped, muscle-bound, like not even human people, but they look like Bruce Willis. They look like that guy from Moonlighting.
I love that show.
It's a great show.
Do ducks duck? Do flies fly? Bruce Willis is so fucking funny in that show.
I fucking love Bruce Willis. Like, he is probably my favorite movie star of all time. I'm just gonna say that.
Early in his film career, he had some jokes, but he just got away from it, man. And he's a funny motherfucker, and it's like Tom Hanks almost.
Yeah,
it's like this dude is so fucking funny, and he's a great dramatic actor. Like, good for him and shit. Please give us peasants some funny. We know you're funny. Give it to us.
He can't anymore, dude. He's got dementia, dude.
Oh yeah, I was talking about
Bruce Willis, man.
Yeah, like, no, I meant like Tom Hanks could still give us funny.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying
he
in
does
the
that
context
on SNL,
and
but yeah,
he does, but man, and I think that's honestly that has a big part in my love for the Lady Killers, because since then and since Philadelphia up to that point, nothing. Dry spell for your Tom Hanks comedy fans right here, who thinks he's one of the funniest motherfuckers in the business. Not doing any comedy.
No, not
and I think that's I will admit that is a biased reason, probably why I have a little bit more love for the Lady Killers than most people do, because I think Tom Hanks is fucking hilarious in that movie. He's perfect, and I love him.
It's too much for me. He's doing too much in that movie for me, but to each their own.
That is fair. I understand that assessment, but it is not my own. Fair. I think he's fantastic.
Fair. No, dude, totally fair.
But yeah, how do we get into that?
I mean, 80s action movies.
Oh yeah, like Bruce Willis. Yeah,
because
Die Hard,
Bruce Willis kind of flips the script, and so after this, we get and I think Tango and Cash kind of is that sweet spot between what 80s action movies were. A future episode of this podcast, Tango and Cash, what 80s action movies were and what they were about to become.
Yeah,
and you've got Stallone and Kurt Russell kind of sharing the screen together. And that I think is a really good encapsulation of kind of the verging roads. I didn't do it.
They're coming to take you away, haha.
If that's for me, I'm not in. I think is what she says in this movie. Of like the kind of the diverging paths of action films. And we will see like Stallone kind of gets his second wind later on, but like the 90s are kind of a struggling moment for him, trying to find what's next for him. And Arnold kind of does the same thing and eventually just decides to run for governor and win. But like you start to see these guys kind of slip in the 90s, like, because what people are wanting from action is less what they were doing and more what Willis was doing. And honestly, I think Predator is maybe partially responsible too, because Predator kind of flips the script on what an action movie had been. And the first half of that movie is a perfect encapsulation of 80s action. And the second is a fucking slasher movie where they're all being hunted. And like none of the shit that works in any action movie fucking works on this guy. Like,
it's the Predator, man. Come on. The motherfucker's invisible.
I love the Predator. I love Predator.
Invisible, dude.
That movie rules. Predator rules.
Agreed.
It's one of my 3 favorite McTiernans, and it's not even close. But here's the thing. McTiernan has 3 perfect or damn near perfect movies.
Agreed.
And he makes them right in a row. It's Predator, it's Die Hard, it's Hunt for Red October.
Word. Now look, I recognize that The Hunt for Red October is an amazing movie. But Steven, you know what the only thing that I don't like more than a boat movie?
A submarine movie?
A motherfucking submarine? That's more in the water. Like, you half in the water in a boat movie, and I can't stand that shit.
Here's
So
the
you all the
thing.
way in the water? Fuck, dude, I
Hunt
couldn't
for
even
Red
get into
October.
McHale's Navy, and Bruce Willis was in that, or Bruce Willis, Bruce Campbell was in that
I was gonna
motherfucker.
say not Bruce Willis.
Well, Tom
No, Hunt
Arnold too, to be fair. So how could you get into that?
and French Stewart.
Aw. Anyway, go ahead.
Hunt for Red October is the best sub movie.
I know
Crimson
it's so
Tide.
good, but
Crimson Tide is a
sub
close
movie.
second, but Hunt for Red October is the best. That's got a surprise Courtney B. Vance role. Like, I always forget he's in that, and then I'm watching it and I'm like, oh fuck, it's Courtney B. Vance. Oh fuck, I love Jonesy. Yes. Like, no, man. Like, but no, like McTiernan kind of flips the script on action in 2 years between Predator and Die Hard, so that by the 90s, what we're expecting from an action movie is a different thing. And I feel like that is part of why this movie kind of is a one and done, because it comes out at the wrong moment.
Agreed.
Like this movie comes out months before Die Hard does. This movie comes out in February. Die Hard, first of all, it's kind of dumped in February. Like, February is the dumping ground for movies.
Yeah.
But it still does fairly well. Like, it is considered a box office success, but it's quickly swept away by Die Hard, and so its status now is as a cult movie as a result of that, which is a fucking bummer.
Yeah. Is there a 4K of this?
I want there to be so bad.
I do too, because I was enjoying the high def version. But there was a bit of noise, and it wasn't digital noise. It was just the quality of whatever print that they had that they transferred for the DVD or whatever, or the Blu-ray.
Right.
But I think if somebody took the original master and remastered it in 4K, it would look really fucking good.
Yeah.
And like, I like that film grain on some stuff, but like,
Sure.
I kind of want this movie to pop. Like Virgin Suicides kind of pop.
Sure. I'm not seeing a physical media release at all.
Fuck. Who made this movie? What's the company? Was Warner Brothers? It was Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers ends up with the rights to it and doesn't do shit with them.
The logo was surprisingly modern.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when it started up, I was like, oh, they tacked the modern logo on. But then, like, the music for the film started while the logo was on, and I was like, oh, wow, 1988, looking pretty fucking fancy with this modern Warner Brothers logo.
So it's a Lorimar Pictures. It's a Lorimar present production. So Lorimar Film.
So probably distributed by Warner Brothers.
No, it's distributed by Lorimar, but Lorimar is eventually purchased
there it is.
I think right before this movie comes out, is purchased by Warner Brothers.
Nice.
Is purchased by Warner's Communication. So
I mean, it's a good looking logo. I'm just saying that had to have been one of the first time they used that modern logo, because this movie's way too old to be having that fucking logo on it.
But I think that's part of the reason why this movie doesn't end up getting the sequels, is because the rights change hand.
Oh, yeah.
There is a sequel plan because it is a success. They plan a sequel, they sell the rights, and then they end up at Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers just sits on it, as Warner Brothers tends to do with shit like this. Like,
they do be doing that.
They're focused on, whatever they think is the next bigger thing, and that they're not paying attention to this thing they have right in front of them. Like, I would love if in a sequel, maybe not the next movie, but maybe the third movie, that like Delaplane's son gets out of prison and tries to take vengeance on action. And
then he really does rip his arm off.
Yeah.
Just take it clean off. I need to see it. I need to see it. Just pluck it, like, yank it like a paper towel. Right off that motherfucker.
Pulled a hamstring, pulled it right off. Yeah, that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
Like an action figure, like.
Yeah, 100%. Like a fucking G.I. Joe.
Into it, way into it. Give
like
me that the third one.
Because, I mean, again, that's kind of the thing that we hear about action through the beginning. He's a one-man army. He's this like very big, imposing figure. And
that kid is so scared of him, he faints like 3 times.
I love my favorite.
And he becomes his friend, and that's so sweet and wholesome, and I love it.
Like, is when he
They're
first goes out with
friends.
Sharon Stone and they're in the bar and the kid ducks into the bar, sees the back of his head and just darts back out the, like, doesn't even see him, just sprints out the door.
That's the
Like,
comedy that works in this
perfect.
movie.
Yes.
They may
100%.
have wasted Tom Wilson, but that bit fucking works 100% every fucking time.
And Sharon Stone looks at him like, who was that? And Action's just not even paying any attention. He cannot be bothered. Like, I love it. Shit like that I love. Like, it's
fantastic.
This movie is so fun. It's a fun, like, it's fun in the way that 80s action movies are supposed to be fun. And like it is the best of blaxploitation and the best of 80s action really baked into a single movie. Like I can't say enough good about it. Look, dude, I feel like we're about ready to wrap up and we haven't even done the fucking plot. Like,
we didn't do the plot, but I mean, yeah, like I was thinking that too. It's like I feel like we've really discussed this.
Yeah, like
We
we've gone
plot.
deep on this movie, but we haven't even done the fucking plot. But here's
Like,
the thing:
should we
the plot
should
is
we leave it out?
complicated.
I'm into leaving it out, man. I want people to go see this. Look, like normally we do the plot, right? But like,
You know
I mean,
what?
I can't imagine a lot of people have seen it. I want this to be an incentive for them to check it out.
Here's what I'll say, Tucker. Like, normally
We've barely touched the plot, except to say that it's complicated. We barely
true.
touched it.
It is true. Here's what I'm going to say. I am willing to not do the plot in 60.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to make that decision. The coin of justice is going to make that decision.
Okay.
If the coin decides we skip here's what I propose. If the coin decides we skip the plot, we skip the plot. If the coin decides we do the plot, you do the plot.
You know what the funniest part about this is that we could have just done the plot in 60 seconds by now, and the time that it took for us to explain that. Okay, I am way into that.
All right, so I've got the coin of justice at the ready, and we're going to determine whether or not we do the plot. Okay, heads, no plot. Tails, Tucker plot as penance for suggesting we not. So,
word.
Here goes.
I love that it's a punishment. Like, I did wrong.
You know what, Tucker?
What?
It's heads.
Ah, the boy done wrong again, but it doesn't matter because it's heads.
The coin chose to agree with you. So look, y'all need to go out and see Action Jackson. Again, it's not streaming anywhere, but it is worth your $4 rental. 100%.
Yeah, you can rent it streaming. Like, it is there digitally, so don't get too scared that it's not going to be there. It's not like on any streaming service, unfortunately.
Right, but it is worth your $4 for sure.
Agreed.
For sure. Tucker, real quick, because I know we do need to wrap some shit up, but like, what is your because this is our Carl Weathers R.I.P. episode. Like, what is your first exposure to Carl Weathers? What are some of your favorite Carl Weathers performances? Like, tell us a little bit about your history with Carl.
Well, Carl Weathers and I, it's all about Rocky. Like, everything else is secondary. Everything else is rad, but inconsequential, honestly.
Sure.
Because Apollo Creed is not only a fantastic fucking character, but Carl Weathers is so charming and handsome, if I may say.
You may.
And him and Sylvester Stallone have fantastic chemistry, which, even though I love the emotional impact and the within the context of the plot of Rocky 3 or Rocky 4, it makes me really sad that we don't get any more Apollo Creed in the Rocky series, because those two together, dude.
Like, I would have wanted Carl to show up in the Creed movies opposite Michael B. Jordan.
Now,
like, I would
how
have
rad would that? Like,
that.
you wouldn't even. It would have been nice to see Stallone, but you wouldn't even need that motherfucker.
Exactly.
If you had Apollo Creed, like,
exactly.
Who?
Yeah.
Like, he's. I don't know. It's one of those roles where, like, that's who Carl Weathers is to me. I don't know who he really is, and I've enjoyed him in other roles as different characters, but when I think of Carl Weathers, it's Apollo Creed 100% all the time. and I feel like I'm a better person for it,
You
honestly.
probably are. Because look,
'Cause he's great. It's fucking
while
great.
while Rocky IV was the first movie I saw Carl Weathers in, the
Mhm.
role that I most associate him with, and this is just, I'm about to show my ass, but it's Carl Weathers from Arrested Development. Like,
With the hand.
mhm. No, that's
That's
Happy
great.
Gilmore. That's Happy Gilmore.
Oh, wait. It's Buster that has the
Buster
fake
has the
hand.
hand,
That's
right?
so weird. They both have fake hands, and I just
But
wowzers. He's the acting coach,
he is. He's
right? In
Tobias's
Arrested
acting
Development.
coach.
Yeah.
Like, there's still some meat on that bone. Get it, put in some little broth, some potatoes,
Who
carrot.
knew that
Baby, you
he
got a
would
stew
be
going.
like? We hadn't seen him do that kind of stuff before. Like he's
And
not a comedy guy.
he hadn't been up to that point, but he's so good at it. Like, he's
Yeah,
perfectly
tuned into
pitched
it
in
for
that
sure.
zone.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's part of why I thought Action Jackson was a comedy, because that's how I saw him at that point.
Oh,
Like,
that
he
tracks
is
now. That makes sense.
he is the comedy guy. So like,
Yeah.
I was like totally in to like that. But again, I loved him in The Mandalorian. I loved him in Predator.
see
I
that.
loved him in the Rocky films. Like, yes, 100%, absolutely. But I cannot get over him in Arrested Development. Like, that for me, that's kind of it. And again, I feel like I'm showing my ass saying that, but like, I love it. I really do. So
No. Those are valid thoughts, Steven. I support those thoughts.
But now it might be Action Jackson, because this movie fucking rules, Tucker. This
Yeah,
movie
it's
is great.
definitely shaken up my perception.
Mm-hmm. Like,
Carl Weathers.
when this movie started, because again, as I said, the cold open for this movie is a perfect cold open. Like, the first 10 minutes of this movie are perfect.
This is, that kind of reminds me of The Way of the Gun in that way. And we've discussed that past and future guest of the podcast, JP Leck, and I famously gush over that movie every time he saw an episode. Very similar to where like the cold open just sets the tone. Like this is the movie we're getting into. So if you like this, cool. If not, you should probably bail now.
Probably, honestly. Yeah, probably a good idea. But yeah, like that's 100% it, man. But as the movie went on, like, and as the plot got more complicated, I started to, my overall enjoyment lessened while my immediate enjoyment was still very high. Like, I was still like, when I was in it, I was having a good time, but when I like had to stop and think about like what was going on, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. So it's not a perfect film for me, but it's still a very good film, and one that I would love to own on physical media, and one that I will definitely be watching again. Yes, please give us the 4K.
Like
Warner
I
Brothers.
said, the way that it's shot, the color grading on that, I would love to see those colors pop.
For sure.
Because it's very, very photorealistic. I love the way this is lit, and like I said, the way it's color graded, it's perfect.
100%. Action Jackson opens on February 12th, 1988. It opens at number 3, the number 1 movie in America, 8 weekends in release. A little movie called Good Morning Vietnam.
What's your boy Robin Williams?
My boy Robin Williams. In second place, a new film this weekend. It's good. A new film out this weekend. It is a little film starring Tom Berenger, Richard Mazer, Clancy Brown, Kirstie Alley, and Sidney Poitier. It's called Shoot to Kill. I have no idea what it's about, but
That's a fantastic fucking cast. I gotta watch that. Let me put that on the list. Or what's it called? Shoot to Kill?
Shoot to Kill.
Shoot to Kill. Putting that on the list for next week. We're watching that motherfucker.
In third place.
That's like my dream cast.
In third place, we've got Action Jackson, the movie we've just discussed. In fourth place, 3 Men and a Baby in this economy.
Speaking of the Goot, no, wait, that's
no, that's
I
the
get
Goot.
them mixed up. Okay, who do I get it mixed up? I get him mixed up with Goot and fucking.
That's Selleck, Gutenberg, and Danson, all 3.
Yeah, but who do I get the Goot mixed up with?
I don't know, dude.
I get him mixed up with. Fuck, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Whatever. Go ahead.
You know
what's that movie I was writing down? Shoot to Kill.
Shoot to Kill. Yeah.
Shoot
you know.
to Kill. Yes,
do you know who directed 3 Men and a Baby? This is fucking wild.
Oh, I feel like I know this.
You should.
Who is it?
Leonard Nimoy,
Yeah, I did know that.
Mr.
It's one of those
Spock.
things where like it's in there, but I couldn't pull it out myself, so you had
Mhm.
to kind of poke it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if he directed the
Anyway.
first or the second one, so I had to look it up. But he did, in fact, direct. That one's been in theaters for 12 weeks so far. It is still at number 4.
Nice.
In 5th place, a damn near perfect movie, Moonstruck. Love Moonstruck.
Oh yeah, that's a good movie. I don't give
That's
that enough attention. I need to watch it more, honestly.
People
I've only
don't.
seen it like twice in my life.
Rounding out the top 10, you've got Wes Craven's The Serpent and the Rainbow at number 6.
Oh, that's a fantastic movie, Steven. Go put that on your list if it's
I
not
was
on
going to
there
say,
already.
I have not. That's one of
Bill
the handful of
Pullman,
Cravens that
holy
I've not
shit.
seen. Yeah.
It's kind of based on a true story too. It's
Okay.
pretty rad.
In 7th place, she's having a baby.
Is she now? What if someone had a baby?
What if someone had a baby? I think that's Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth McGovern in that one.
So just one man and a baby in that one, not
Yeah.
the 3 like the other
Right.
one. Okay.
In 8th place, opening this weekend, Satisfaction with Liam Neeson and Julia Roberts. It was a Joan Freeman movie, that one.
I have no idea.
I didn't figure. In 9th place, Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson, Ironweed. That one has been, I think that one is opening wide this weekend. It's been in theaters
that a
for
real
about
movie?
9 weeks. It is. It's a Sony TriStar
Wow.
movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that tracks.
That's a real ass movie. And in 10th place, opening new this week, is Spike Lee's second film, School Days. We had talked about Spike Lee earlier in the episode, and he's back again at 10th
That's
spot.
one of my few blind spots in his filmography. I have not seen School Days.
I don't like School Days for one very specific reason. There's some sexual politics in that I feel are really gross. And there's an argument that I think some people make that that's the point. But if that is the point, he doesn't do a good enough job of highlighting that that's the point.
Yeah.
So
I could see
that's just my thought on that. Anyway, Action Jackson makes $20.3 million in the domestic box office off of a $7 million production budget. Again, success, but not successful enough to warrant further sequels. Now we get to hear what the critics say, and it's just rude, frankly. The Tomatometer score is a 19%. Rude.
That's outrageous.
The Metascore is a 36 based on generally unfavorable reviews from 9 critics.
And even the audience scores on like Rotten Tomatoes aren't that good. What the fuck, everybody?
I
Are
know.
we watching the same movie?
Come on,
this is
people,
fantastic.
get with it. And Letterboxd, the score is a 3.0. Tucker out of 5 stars. How are you rating 1988's Action Jackson?
Before I reveal that, I want to say I'm starting to realize that pretty much everything on Letterboxd sits at right around a 3.
I mean, it's kind of an average, yeah.
Between like 2.8 and 3.2 is where every movie sets on every movie on Letterboxd.
That's
every
a sweet spot,
one.
baby.
Anyway, this is a 4. This is 4 stars because despite an overcomplicated story and at times less than perfect script, though the script does a lot of things really, really well, this movie does so many things perfectly.
Right.
And especially for me, because I am a fan of both of the genres that it leans heavily on. I'm a fan of a lot of the actors in this film. This, like I said before, this is what Cobra should have been. I thought Cobra was supposed to be made for me. No, Action Jackson was made for your boy. 100%. So that's 4 stars for me.
Yeah, it's a 4 for me too. Like like I said, it's not perfect. Like the plot was sort of kind of weighing me down, but like at the end of the day, I had a blast with and again, the action set pieces in this movie are about as good as practical action sequences get in the 80s. Like it's
kind of the pinnacle. It's like the stop motion in Return to Oz. It's the best that it's pretty much ever been.
Yeah. And I mean, because after this, I mean, the next major action movie that I really register is Terminator 2 in 91, 92. And that one is that's when CGI kind of starts. Then the Cameron's still doing a lot of stuff practically.
I mean, to be fair, the set pieces are, with the exception of like Robert Patrick's character, are
Sure.
practical.
Right.
But it's kind of the genesis of Terminator Genesis of CGI kind of taking over.
It's the Terminator Genesis of
With a
computers
Y.
taking over for humans. Yeah.
Yes.
Which, I mean, it works on levels, that bit. So I'm pro
funny
this.
how that all works out, right?
Right. I am really bummed I did not get a chance to talk about Vanity, the female lead of this movie, because she is a fascinating character.
You know what? We'll talk about her when we cover The Last Dragon.
Okay. Touche. That is fair, because she is a really interesting figure, and I do want to touch on her, but I know your computer's about to die, and we got to wrap this up.
She got a raspberry for this. Fuck you, Golden Raspberries. Fuck off with your bullshit.
I mean, in general, fuck the Golden Raspberries.
Yeah, like an institution that is dedicated, like its only purpose is to punch fucking down.
Exactly.
Fuck off, Gold Raspberries.
Fucking
like, is it kind of funny?
Bullshit.
Maybe, but also
it's kind of funny the first time you hear about it, and then the more you hear about it, you're just like, fuck that, fuck those guys.
Like when Halle Berry shows up to pick her to like give a speech for her Catwoman Raspberry, like that's a high point in like the
holding
joke
her
of the
Oscar.
Golden Raspberries. Yeah. Yes.
Or Sandra Bullock showing up and bringing DVDs of her performance in All About Steve because people didn't catch the nuance.
Yes.
Like, those are the high watermarks of the Golden Raspberries, but generally, just in general, fuck the Golden Raspberries.
Fuck them, man. That's
like, and just because two people were able to like play into it and make lemonade out of shit, like, doesn't mean that does not justify the existence of a bunch of people punching down for decades.
We don't need that. Like, look. We talk shit about people all day, but you don't got to make a big thing out of it, man. Don't involve them. Like, don't involve everybody else. Like, fuck, man. That's why gossip is gossip, and not like that's why the internet was a mistake, man. Because now it's not just gossip, man. It's out there for everybody.
It's everywhere. Yep.
You can't talk shit anymore, like in a polite way. Like. I know it sounds really awful, but also like, no, I'm just saying, but you get into it with your friends, you're like, that person we both know, there's that one thing about them that's just, can you believe that shit? I don't know, but now you can't. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, honestly. That's a kind of an existential quandary that I'm gonna have to work through.
I was gonna say, yeah, on that one. you wrestle through that while I talk about our social media.
I just opened up a can of worms in my own brain, so I'll get back to you on that.
All right. Well, hey, while he works through that, this has been the Disenfranchised Podcast. You can find us on just about any social platform, but specifically, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Instagram, we're on Letterboxd, we're on Facebook, and we're on YouTube at Disenfranchised Pod. Find us on patreon.com/disenfranchised for $5 a month. You get access to so much content, including our weekly show. What are we watching? Days of content for days.
Possibly a week.
Yeah, and you get look, also, if you are on your podcatcher of choice, leave us a 5-star rating and review, particularly if you're on Google Podcasts. Or not Google Podcast, particularly if you're on Apple Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Those go a long way. We actually got a new review this past week, but I don't have time to read it, so maybe next week.
Oh, no, you do, Steven. Come on, you got it. You got this. Read the review, Steven.
It is let's tempt fate. It is from one of our patrons and one of our good fans, Brandy. She wrote a review, 5-star review, a fun listen. The chemistry between the three hosts is so great, and I always have so much fun listening to this podcast. They're funny and they cover a wide variety of movies.
Oh, we love
So
Brandy. Brandy's all over our social media, man. We love Brandy.
yeah, we love Brandy. Thank you, Brandy. We appreciate you.
Yeah, dude.
Appreciate that
Thanks for
review.
that.
We really do. And
Yeah.
hey, if you're a fan and you want to hear us read your name and your words on this podcast, write us a review and we'll do that for you. Another way to get us to read your name and words on this podcast is to write us an email, disenfranchedpod@gmail.com. And if you do that, Tucker will get very excited. You will validate Tucker's entire existence if you write us an email.
You'll keep me going for another week.
It really, really will.
Life will be worth living for another week.
He fucking loves that shit, man. You will just make his whole life if you do that for him. So I'm actually looking at it now. I don't see that there's anything in there, which is a bummer. But hey, I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy. You can find me on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky at Chewy Walrus. Tucker, where can we find you these days?
I'm on Instagram and I'm on YouTube at Einstein09, ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. Also check out Tuck Mugs on Instagram at Tuck_mugs. We've had a lot of posts lately, a couple guest mugs and a solo mug, and we got another guest mug on the way, and also a delayed mug from my Christmas vacation. My computer's at 5%, so let's get the fuck out of here, Steven.
All right. You can find Brett on some socials at either sus_warlock or suswarlock. Hey, guys, this has been the Disenfranchised Podcast on Action Jackson. I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy, from my co-host Tucker and my absent co-host Brett Wright. Until next time, how do you like your ribs?